Oh my goodness, everybody. It is almost the end of August. In fact, it's August 21st in the year 2024. It's episode number 167 on a Wednesday, Material Issues. I'm Mark Hershberger of Pop Detective Records. I'm over here on the East Coast where it is a gorgeous, fabulous 74-degree day. I don't get to say that too often this whole summer. It's been too hot, but I'm loving it. Ches is loving it. And all the way on the other side of the country, president of the International Pop Overthrow Festival, my good friend, Mr. David Bash. He's got his bling on tonight. I don't remember seeing you with bling on tonight.
No, this is some new bling. I've become more gangster lately, and I think my attire should reflect that.
Yeah, I thought you've gone all gangsta on us, so I love it. I'm loving the bling.
It's going to be IHH Overthrow, International Hip Hop Overthrow is coming your way.
And instead of watches, you're going to be showing us your new ring for each finger, and then of course the gold cap on your front teeth.
Absolutely. I'll still have watches. They'll just be more blingy.
You got to do it. You got to get the gold caps, one per tooth per episode. That'd be awesome. We'll call you Flava Dave.
Already Jay-Z and Ice Cube have consented to be at IHHO next year. So,
all right,
I should be able to get a lot more rappers with them already in.
Good stuff. What else is going on, my friend? You finished up IPO San Diego, right?
IPO San Diego was just one night on Saturday, but it went really well.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, it was fun. Really nice weather, nice crowd, great bands, and we love going down to San Diego at least once a year, we have our favorite Mexican restaurant is down there, and lots of good record stores, of course. So,
cool. I saw Rena did her a little wine episode as well.
On our way back, we
back on
winery that she likes. Well, it's actually more of a wine tasting room. I don't know. I don't think it's a winery. I don't think they have any grapes on premises, but they do import a lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
At least according to her, it's good. Like I always say, to me, wine tastes like metal and dirt. I don't care which one you give me.
Well, then you've got a
metal and dirt.
Discerning palate. You've got a discerning palate.
You
need to do an episode.
For wine, I don't.
You need to do an episode where you swirl the A&W zero sugar root beer and say, you know what? I'm getting earthly notes of slate.
We'll do it right now. Hold
on. Good stuff. Can you believe it? Root beery.
Yeah.
Can you believe this episode? I know you posted earlier. It was episode 168. You got yourself one episode ahead of us. Andy's checking in. Good to see you, Andy.
Hi, Andy. I mean, this is 167.
167. Yeah.
No.
I don't know.
Why didn't you tell me? I could have corrected.
I just noticed it like seconds ago, so it's all good. We're still 160 episodes in, man. It's crazy.
Yeah. Back to IPO, we're going to be in Vancouver next week. One of my favorite cities. We'll be at Lana Lou's from Thursday the 29th through Saturday the 31st, and then we'll be flying back on my birthday, September 2nd.
Hey Tim, good to see you.
Little
David.
Oh, so I'm doing a little Kim here? Is that what you're saying?
I'm
looking very womanly today. Vancouver's that's a great ball for.
Yeah, ball for it.
From Jim by Jim Boughton.
Yeah. How many days is Vancouver? 2, 3?
3. Yeah. Nice. We have a nice family of musicians up there. People who play IPO every year. They're really devoted, and we love that.
Nice.
Plus, the city is just beautiful. It's right on the water. There's a strong European feel about it, and the people are great, and hopefully the weather will be good. So it's sometimes you get all sun, sometimes you get rain. We'll see what happens.
Oh, cool. That'd be fun.
Yeah, it'll definitely be fun.
Area.
But we leave on Tuesday. So
all right. You're driving?
No, we're flying up.
Are you flying up? I thought did you ever drive up?
When we did IPO in San Francisco, thank you, Andy. San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, and Vancouver. Then I would drive up.
Yeah. But now you're just
we're just doing Vancouver. So other than LA and San Diego on the West Coast, that's all we're doing. Would like to go back to some of those other cities, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Not much to talk about new releases or reissues, but perhaps we can tackle that next week. If we don't have a guest. I'm still working on a few, but anyway, we do have a guest this week, and I think it's about time we introduce him. He is definitely a jack of all trades. He's written for Goldmine Magazine and Discoveries, among many, many others. Some also local papers. He's from the Syracuse area, which is where I started college. I went to SU for a year and a quarter, then transferred to New York University. But I had some good times in Syracuse. I definitely, I'll mention a few record stores that I used to go to, and I'm sure our guest went there. Who knows? Maybe we saw each other there. We'll never know. But anyway, he does that. He's got his radio show. This is Rock and Roll Radio with Dana Bond every Sunday night. He's got a blog under his own name where of course he talks about music. He's actually also written for a comics collector, so I'm going to have to ask about that. I always thought it was comic books, but he can straighten me out on that one. And and of course he's an author of a couple of books. He's got the Gabba Gabba Hey, the book on the Ramones, and of course the new one, the greatest record ever made, which we're going to talk about. Find out if indeed there is a greatest record ever made, or if it's something that is up to the individual. Yada, yada, yada.
We're going to find out.
We're going to find out. So without further ado, would you please give a huge Material Issues welcome to Mr. Carl Cafarelli.
And there he is. Carl Cafarelli.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Someone who I've known online for many, many years, but had never met. Now we have.
We've spoken on the phone a couple of times. It's funny because for some reason, around about Christmas of 1996, you were at a Christmas party. For some reason, we wound up talking on the phone. I don't remember what the circumstances were, but I have a specific memory because I was sick with chickenpox.
Right.
And you happened to be the only person who called me at that time. So I was very welcome. Thank you very much, by the way. And
you're welcome.
You put on a woman who was married to a member of the Jigsaw scene, and wound up speaking with her for a little while. And she wound up in Syracuse for a Cockeyed Ghost show.
Michelle Krupkin.
Yeah, I think that's right. And she was in Syracuse a few months later for a Cockeyed Ghost show. She was here for a funeral, and she saw in the Syracuse New Times that Cockeyed Ghost was playing. So I said, well, geez, I could use something to cheer me up. And then she saw me, and that didn't really cheer her up, but she saw me too.
No, I think she's from that area originally.
Yeah, I think you're right. You mentioned comics collector. This is not a prop I thought I'd be bringing in today, but
comics collector.
Yeah, 1984, 85, right around there. 85. I wrote. This was the first Krause publication that I ever wrote for, and that was my gateway to start writing for Goldmine.
Oh, nice. I saw. Are you a big comic book collector?
I love comic books. I'm there every Wednesday, including today. I bought my comic book stash from Comic Zone in North Syracuse. I'm a big fan of comic books. I still read them. I don't really collect them. And a lot of times they accumulate for a little while, and then off they go either to Goodwill or to eBay occasionally, and some I save. But I'm trying not to be quite the pack rat that I've been my entire life. Honest, Brenda, I know my wife is listening. Honest, Brenda, I am trying to be less of a pack rat. You might not see the results, but I'm working on it.
Carl. Tell me about it.
I'm trying.
It's interesting you say that, though, because I like many of us, I'm a pack rat, and I wish I could. Even magazines that I love, it's like, well, I really like that magazine. I got to save it. Yeah, that's some pretty good willpower to actually read these things, not collect them, and pass them on their way.
I didn't say I was successful at it.
No. We'll have your wife on here in 7 minutes. She's going to join us live here on Material Issues. But what? Just so we stick on a subject for 1 second, what fascinates you about comic books? What is it?
Gosh, everything. I mean, it's the same thing that fascinates us about anything glittery in pop culture. But for me, it's storytelling. That's why I wanted to be a writer. I was 13 years old at a wedding of all things, and I was just scribbling things in my notebook. I think I've got I think my home is being invaded. I was scribbling in a notebook notes for like a Batman, drawing Batman, and one of the other guests says, "Well, you like comic books? Yeah. You ever think about writing them? What, you can do that?" And right then and there, I decided I was going to be a writer. I was never going to make a living at it. I certainly never have, and I'm sure that I never will. But that's what I wanted to do, and I specifically wanted to write comic books. I like the storytelling. I like heroic fiction. Seeing the Batman TV series was. Well, I was 6 years old, right then when the month that the Batman TV show appeared, and I didn't know it was making fun of the character. I just thought, it's a hero. This is cool. I already liked comic books a little bit. You know, every kid in the 60s read comic books. Boy or girl, we all read comic books. And my older siblings had Lois Lane comic books and Metal Men comic books and all these things. So it was a natural thing to fall into. And I love that storytelling. And I wound up writing nonfiction. Most of what I wrote wound up being initially about comic books for Fantagraphics in 1984 for a magazine called Amazing Heroes. And then from there, I saw that Don and Maggie Thompson at Comics Buyer's Guide had a mass market magazine called Comics Collector that they were starting out. They were looking for freelancers to submit material. So I said, I actually wrote something about the Batman TV series, which wasn't getting a lot of ink, especially in the comics press in the mid-'80s. And that, as I said, was my gateway into Krause Publications. I noticed, Krause has a music magazine. I was working in record retail at the time. I was living in Buffalo. And I really wanted to write about rock music. I really wanted to write for Cream magazine. I was unsuccessful in my many attempts to do that. I got very polite rejection letter from Billy Altman. Never heard most of what I did, but that was my gateway in. I sent a couple of unsolicited reviews to Jeff Tamarkin, who was the editor of Goldmine at that time. This is right about the same exact time that John Borek started writing. This is late 1986. And Jeff wrote me a note saying, okay, first of all, these are assigned. Wait till we assign you something. I like your style. We want you to write for us. Stop using the word I. And then from there, I got a couple of assignments, did a couple of record reviews. I was published. What were the first reviews? I did a various artists album called Beasts from the East and the Doctor and the Medics album, of all things.
Wow.
And then from there, I just started freelancing. My first feature article was in spring, summer 1987 about the Bay City Rollers, another group that wasn't getting written about really anywhere in the 80s. And then I just kept on doing. I wound up, John and I became our East and West Coast power pop counterparts. And we frequently got complimented for work that the other one did. And we usually just said, yes, we did that. And crowning achievement was the power pop issue of Goldmine in 1996. I actually have it here. Hang on. Government.
I remember that one.
Yes. I'm transcribing a Greg Kinn interview that was in here, so I have it handy. This was
John. I guess your favorite song must be "My Rival" by Alex Chilton.
John and I've always gotten on great. Yeah.
Yeah,
we were never rivals. We were, and Jeff knew that. Yeah, I'm still corresponding with Jeff and John. Obviously, Jeff just did a nice write-up for Greatest Record, my current book, Greatest Record Ever Made. I learned so much. I was very blessed to have editors who got it. Jeff Tamarkin being the obvious example. Don and Maggie Thompson before that at Comics Buyer's Guide. Locally, the Syracuse New Times, Mike Greenstein and Russ Tarby, they knew what they were doing. I didn't always agree with what they were doing, but they knew what they were doing, and I learned so much. I sometimes refer to Jeff as my mentor because more than anything else, I mean, I did more work for him than I did for any editor, and I just learned. Our paths kind of diverged at some point because I became more interested in doing something more personal. I haven't, other than the Monkees' Good Times album, I have not written a record review in well over 20 years. I will probably never write another one because I'm just not interested. I learned so much writing for Jeff.
You're not interested in writing, or there's nothing that's come out in the past 20 years
No, I always say right now is always the best ever time to be a fan of pop music, because everything that was ever great, everything that you ever loved is still there. You can listen to it. But if you dig a little deeper, there's new stuff out there. And we couldn't do a radio show if we just had old stuff to play. And we do a radio show every week like clockwork. And we fight to try, not Dana, well, Dana and I fight too, but we fight to try to fit in what we want to play. We want to play a lot of old stuff. We want to showcase a lot of new stuff. There's so much great stuff out there. Big Stir Records alone accounts for so much of that, but they're not the only ones. There's Rumbar, there's Cool Cat, there's Future Man, and I'm just naming the obvious ones.
Yeah.
For reissues, there's Cherry Red, there's Omnivore. And there again, I'm just naming the obvious ones.
And there's Omnivore for new stuff too.
Yes, exactly.
Latest international pop compilation.
Nice tie-in.
It all ties into David Bash, doesn't it?
It does.
As well it should.
And just across the bottom of the page right now, it says sparksyracuse.org. Yes. That's the link that goes to This Is Rock and Roll Radio that we were just alluding to. And
it's the most convenient way to get to us. From there, you can go to options to get to the live stream. Our archive is very much not updated right now for technical reasons that do not have an immediate solution, but they will be. Eventually, it'll be updated. Last I checked, we had shows from May, nothing more recently. But they'll get there. I mean, they're recorded. Since the pandemic, we've been recording at home. This week's show, I recorded earlier today. Dana will take it now and turn it into a radio show rather than me just talking into my iPhone about the songs that we played. The show is very much Dana and Carl. It's not just my show, nor is it just Dana's show. The show does not work if not for both of us putting what we put into it. It's absolutely a team effort. Well, Dana might think I take too much credit for it, and if I get too much credit for it, I reject that. I don't want to be the Bill Finger in this. I don't want to be the Bob Kane in that discussion.
But that's how you can get to it. Sparksyracuse.org. It's one way. We'll have some more links and some other things right now, but that'll always be there on the archives, and people can always access. But getting back to the cartoons, just one more brief second. I have to bring up something. Did you ever see the cartoon or the comic Dr. Shroud? I'll pop it up right there.
It's the sort of thing that looks familiar, but I don't have any specific memory of it. So I may be just nodding politely and saying, "Yeah, that looks familiar."
I only bring it up because the comic book writer who did that turned it into an animated cartoon, and I did the voice of Dr. Shroud. So there's a callback here to something that Mark did instead of David's IPO CD. So now it's back to Mark.
As well, it should be.
That's funny, but
I'm just a conduit for whatever you guys want to do.
It's all good. If you haven't found, it's a rare comic book. If you haven't found Dr. Shroud, find it, and it's kind of cool. But okay, back to where we were. So this is Rock and Roll Radio with Dana. It's a fantastic show you do, and that's one of my places that I go to listen to a lot of the newest stuff going on, because there's a few channels here and there, but not everybody covers what everybody else does. So you do a great job in playing the new what we call a genre power pop wise. So thanks for that, man. And and your blog spot, your Carl Cafarelli blog, updating everybody on all kinds of things. That latest stuff you were writing on the shirts was
thank you.
I was huge shirts fan, so that pops up and I'm like, yeah, look at this, I gotta check this out.
The shirts once played IPO. See, back to IPO.
Oh, really?
Back to IPO.
They did in New York. They did 2011, I believe.
Oh, nice.
Dave Bash is all, and all is Dave Bash. Can you hear me? Okay, I had to take my headphones off.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
So, Carl, are you a musician as well?
I got guitars here. I can prove to you that I'm not a musician, but you'll take my word for it.
No, me neither. Nor is Jordan Oaks. So a lot of people who aren't musicians, that's how we're able to make our contribution.
Right.
So you, me, Jordan, and a few others who are not musicians. John Borak's a drummer. He's not really a musician then.
Now stop that. You're propagating myths, mister.
Drummers just haul the stuff. Yeah.
Actually, John's a really good drummer, and he's gotten a lot of compliments on his drumming from people who are known good drummers.
Right.
So Yeah.
I tell you, speaking of John, we'll talk about John for a second. Have you heard the new Armours album yet? The one that's coming out?
Never heard it.
Oh my God, it's good. Oh my God.
It is really good. Yes, it is.
It's really, really
yes,
good.
yes, it is. They worked really hard on it. It took a while, but it's worth the wait.
Yeah. I hear they had a studio drummer on that one. That's
Oddly enough, Jughead Jones played on a number of tracks.
I'm waiting for John's comments. Here we go.
Scale and actually burgers.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, Mike. Wow, good to see you.
Yeah, very good. Look at that.
Is your drumming still muscular, Mike? That's from a review I wrote on a
Really?
Hershberger album.
Nice. Wow. Yeah. Now the Armours are fantastic. Oh, here we go.
Boys, I'm going to have to ask you to settle down.
It's good.
Mark, do you know what Hershey is from?
No, where's Hershey from?
It's our good friend Grossberg.
Oh, is it? Okay.
He was calling you Hershey, which is very mature of him.
Yeah.
And then one time he accidentally wrote Hershey, so John picked up on that, and he refers to as Hershey sometimes.
Now I know. Carl, growing up, what led you down? I mean, would you call yourself a power pop fan from the early days, or were you a music fan of all genres and things? Because you could describe yourself as a power pop fan today for the most part, I would think. But what were some of your influences when you were small? Some of the early stuff that turned you on.
I mean, I've said apologies for people who've heard me tell the same stories over and over again, Dana.
That's fine.
But music was always there. I was born in 1960. I remember Beatlemania. I did see the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show. I did go see A Hard Day's Night when I was 4 years old at the North Drive-In in Cicero, and I do remember all the girls in the cars screaming. But the Beatles were not my first pop music interest. They were the biggest. I mean, everyone in America in '64 knew the Beatles. Didn't matter if you were 4 years old, if you were 40 years old, or whatever. Didn't matter if you liked them or not. They were everywhere. They were synonymous with pop music. But even before that, I also knew the Four Seasons, the Surfaris, Wipeout, not Connie Francis. I'm blanking. Edie Gourmet, loved Blame It on the Bossa Nova was the greatest record ever made when I was that young. My mom and dad's records, all the Broadway, all the swing, and more than anything else, AM radio freaking ruled.
Yes, it did.
Best thing God ever gave to us. Yeah. Well, that and Coca-Cola. Those are the two best things that God ever gave. Did you listen
to WABC back then? Could you get that, or a local Syracuse area station?
I wouldn't have even thought about trying to tune in a station from out there somewhere. But we didn't need to, because we had WNDR. We had WNDR AM in Syracuse, which is where I heard the Bobby Fuller 4, where they played Over and Over by the Dave Clark 5. There was no need for anybody to go elsewhere. It wasn't until later on I'm talking now that I was 6 years old when I thought the law came out. So I never would have even dreamed about trying to, find airwaves from elsewhere. Didn't need to. They were right there. And as the 70s opened, I skipped fifth grade, which was, I don't think they do that anymore. That's one of the biggest mistakes that can be made in the educational system. It used to be fairly common. I think it's a rarity now. And you lose a year of adjustment. You lose a year of gaining, if not maturity, but acclimating to the idea of maturity. And it's very difficult to recover from that. So I went from fourth grade. My elementary school went up to fifth grade. I did not finish in my elementary school. I was kicked upstairs from fourth grade to the middle school for sixth grade. And that was a culture shock that I never really was able to acclimate to. I was never really able to do that, but I had my radio. And every night I would listen to the radio. My parents objected at first to me having the radio on as I went to sleep, but over time it was kind of accepted that I was going to do that. And boy, top 40 AM radio in the early to mid 70s.
Best.
I'll put that up against anything out there. Badfinger.
I agree with you, Carl.
Slade had hits in Syracuse. They were big. All that stuff. Johnny Nash.
Everything.
1970 through 1974.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the music on AM radio that means more to me than anything.
Yes.
And so and one of the great things, as you know, about radio back then is, there were regional hits. It wasn't all. Right. And I'm sure, can you think of a regional hit, something that was really big in the Syracuse area, let's say in the early 70s, that didn't really make much of a dent on the national charts?
I can think of a few that we know very well now, but that did not make a national impact at the time. Things like Goodbye to Jane by Slade. Huge hit in England. Not so much here, but it was a legit hit on WOLF AM. I was listening more to WOLF in the 70s than WNDR by that point. Tonight by the Raspberries. AM radio hit here. Not so much elsewhere. Blockbuster by Sweet. Those are the first three that come to mind. But I remember them all from AM radio here in Syracuse. And
what was the name of the station? When I started college there, they used to blast a station into the game room area that where we'd play pinball, and it didn't have a live DJ. It just had a recorded DJ which would back announce songs after they were done. Okay. That station there were two songs on that station that were played a lot that didn't do much nationally. Right. One was Brand New Love Affair by Jigsaw.
Okay.
And the other was Take a Hand by Rick Springfield.
Oh, wow.
Both on Chelsea Records. So Chelsea must have been sending some payola their way. But do you remember a station like that? I'm trying to remember what city.
I almost remember something like that. When you first started talking, I presumed that you were going to be mentioning WAER, which was affiliated with. It still is affiliated with Syracuse University.
Right.
But that's the pre-recorded back announcement. Doesn't sound right. Dana would know more. Dana regards WAER as much as top 40 AM as on me.
It was an AM station. I don't remember which city it was out of. It was one of the suburbs of Syracuse. It could have been Cicero. I don't remember.
I wonder if it was the Baldwinsville station, because Baker High in Baldwinsville, which is a suburb to the north.
Doesn't sound right, but
yeah, W blanking on their name.
Well, if Dana can remember a station like that, I'd love to know.
Dana, step up to the microphone. Dana. Oh, he ain't here.
But it's interesting. I think the three of us all kind of in the similar age and boat of AM radio, really loved that early to mid 70s radio to the point of obsession. We were discussing on a previous show of the transistor radio, which is the mono plug in your ear, and then the DJ coming on saying caller number 9, you win whatever. It wouldn't matter what the hell the record was, but we had the rotary phone that took forever to dial, especially if the number would be like 79694, and you get through the whole thing and DJ would pick up and say, "You're calling number 6, try again." And there's no way, if they were looking for caller number 9, you could possibly dial fast enough to beat.
Not after number 6, no,
not after number 6. And that memory sticks with me to this day of that rotary phone going. And then, of course,
still look back on the experience fondly. Even though you didn't win, you still look back on that. Well, that was cool, though, wasn't it?
All those years, I won one. I won a Ringo album, which I still have the darn thing. But yeah, the rotary phone, and when the touch-tone phone came into my life, that changed everything.
Yeah. I remember in high school, WOLF AM, this would have been 75, 76, right around then, had a Beatles weekend, and they were giving away a Beatles album of your choice among the ones we have. To the first caller who can call up and tell us the color of George Harrison's eyes. Beatle poster in the bedroom. Plaid. No, it's not plaid. Brown. And I got through, and I won a copy of Help.
Oh, nice. See, people, yeah. Younger generation today just will never know that thrill of a rotary phone and dialing through and getting through and actually winning something from the radio station. That's
I never even tried, I have to admit.
The excitement. I was talking with a neighbor today. The other thing with a rotary phone is if you had the nerve to call a girl up on a Friday night because we were given her phone number, by the time you got 4 numbers in, because it took so long, you lost your nerve and hung up, and then you'd sit there sweating and go, okay, I gotta say hi. I just gotta say hi. And then you'd get 3 or 4 numbers in, and it took so long, you hung up again. And
Oddly enough, I've never been terribly courageous. I'm actually, no one believes me. I'm actually fairly shy, but I cover it very well because I learned that I have to. But I did complete the phone call when those happened. I didn't get anywhere. They were polite or they hung up immediately. But I did complete the phone call and say hi.
I usually
you guys are amateurs. Look, I'll tell you what I used to do.
What are you getting paid for?
I would look in the phone book for their number. And if I didn't find it, I would go over to the DMV and try to find it that way. And usually it worked. And once I did, if they didn't answer the phone, I'd go over to their house and, throw rocks at the windows.
Mm-hmm.
David, that's stalking. That's discouraged.
He'd play.
You mean that's called stalking?
Every breath you take, every move you make.
Mark and I used to joke about, we still joke about how, back in the day, you could do those kind of things. It didn't even have a label on it.
There was no label.
Yeah, right. In all honesty, no, I never did anything like, well, maybe not, maybe once or twice.
But that's now, but it's different.
That's the beauty of the 70s and the music that we love. It takes you right back to the time and place and other things about and around the music. I can remember the dances, especially junior high dances, when I didn't have the nerve to ask a girl to dance, but I would just sit up in the bleacher listening to all this great 70s, 70s music, especially some of the heartbreaking ones, and and just lament over the fact that the good-looking guy is getting all the girls down there because he's got the nerve to walk up to them. I can still remember that. I can smell the bleachers. I can smell what they smell like when I hear like Shannon, like Henry Ghost or something. I can smell what the bleachers were like sitting there by myself, just fawning.
It's odd that you bring that song up because I was just thinking the other day, what a great record that is.
Oh yeah,
it's not a popular.
That didn't appear in your greatest record.
It might. You never know.
That could be volume 2, right?
I've always been. I determined a long time ago because of my experience of being a Batman fan post adolescence and being a Monkees fan in the 70s. I'm not going to let anybody tell me what I like. I'm going to like what I like, and there's a 2-word reply if you don't agree.
Carl, I want to ask you about a couple of record stores in Syracuse in the 70s. Did you used to go to M Street for Record Theater?
M Street became Record Theater. Yeah, I recall. I think that was on Marshall Street.
No, it was on M Street or Marshall Street, but the Syracuse kids called it M Street, and it was called the record store was Record Theater.
Yeah, I used to go there all the time.
I bet we were in the same because I was there all the time too.
I graduated from high school in '77, but even as a suburban teenager, obviously the SU Hill was where things were happening. If I could get a ride up there, I would go there and look at the record stores, see if I could catch a student screening of a film, get the pizza. The pizza was very good up there. But yeah, I love Record Theater. I bought the Nerves EP at Record Theater.
Wow.
Yeah.
Pretty rare one now. Yeah, I used to bug them. When I heard Beach Boys Love You was coming out, I'd go in like 3 times a week saying, do you have it yet? Do you have it yet? They started... Eventually, one Friday I went in and the clerk just threw it at me.
I did the same thing at Gerber Music in the suburbs. I did the same thing at Gerber Music in the suburbs at Penn Can Mall. But for me, this was the summer of '78. That was the Flash Cube's first 45. I was bugging them every day because they had the 45, but the picture sleeve hadn't been printed yet. They had the 45, and I would just ask them, "Can you play that for me?" And they did, just so I would stop bothering them. Yeah, every day I was in there bugging them.
And after I transferred to NYU, I went back to Syracuse for a visit, and I went over to Desert Shore Records, which you probably Alan Braun.
Danny used to work there.
Sorry,
Danny used to work there.
Oh, really? I don't, so I probably met him.
Yeah.
But
later on.
I remember, and it was March of 1978, and there was a picture sleeve of the record "Christie Girl" by the Flash Cubes, and it looked really pop. So I asked Alan, what is this? And he said, "Oh, you'll love this. Don't I mean, I don't even have to play it for you. I promise you'll love it." And he was not wrong.
The best record store, my favorite record store of all time, and I have many, was in my college town of Brockport, New York. There was a place on Main Street called Main Street Records. I bought a bunch of stuff there. I bought Sheena's a Punk Rocker 45 there. I bought God Save the Queen there. Sheena, no exaggeration, the record that changed my life. And just a little bit later on, after there, this is actually at the Record Grove, but the guy who managed the Record Grove went on to found his own store, Main Street Records. When it's still a Record Grove, I bought the Pleasers first.
Oh, wow.
EP, I think it was.
Yeah.
And he asked me, "Did you like the Pleasers?" Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, it's not as good as the Knickerbockers because they both had a song called Lies, but yeah, I liked it pretty good. Why do you ask, Bill? Well, because I think you're going to like this. And he put the Romantics' Little White Lies into my hands and said, "Okay, all right. You never steered me wrong yet, and you didn't steer me wrong then. That was a fantastic record." I still maintain that's the best thing they ever did, and I love what they did for Nemperor. But that 45, that's just, both sides are just untouchable. I played that all summer long in 78, over and over again.
I agree. Agreed. Ramones, Sheena Is a Punk Rocker changed your life.
Yeah. That was just, I was 17. I was a freshman in college. Earlier in the year, when I was still in high school, Phonograph Record Magazine was distributed to local record stores, local Gerber music outlets by WOUR FM. I'd never seen it before. I'd never heard of punk rock. What I'd heard was the tabloid reports of the Sex Pistols puking on their audience, which wasn't true, but that was the sensation of it. I was already listening to WOUR in Utica because they were playing stuff that was more interesting to me than what was getting on AM radio in 1977. So through WOUR, I heard the Rubinoos. I heard Nick Lowe. I heard Greg Kinn, Graham Parker. So I was interested in finding out more. I picked up Phonograph Record Magazine. They were talking about punk rock. I said, "This sounds really, really interesting." You want to dismiss it, but interesting in a way that's, I can't dismiss it. This sound, I couldn't even imagine what it sounded like. I especially couldn't imagine what the Ramones could be. They sounded like they had to be the biggest, most deplorable hoodlums in the world. But it just fascinated. I didn't have to hear a note of their music to know that I was just intrigued no end. And I got to college in Brockport, late August of 77, and I got WBSU to play all this stuff that I'd never heard before. I heard the Sex Pistols on WOUR, but this gave me a chance to hear Television and Blondie and Willie Alexander and the Boom Boom Band, all these acts. And the Ramones, they played Blitzkrieg Bop. I said, "This is interesting. I like this." So I bought God Save the Queen, which I knew, and Sheena's a Punk Rocker, which I had never heard. Just bought them at the Brockport store. Didn't own a stereo in my dorm room. I had to wait till Thanksgiving break to play the Ramones for the first time. And the record's something like 2.5 minutes, maybe. I listened to it for the first time, and I swear to God, I listened to it for a half hour straight. I could not believe how great it was. I was already a music fan. I liked AM radio. I liked FM radio. I liked the music of then, as well as I liked the music of the then. But nothing really matched my fervor for the music of the 60s or even the early 70s, Badfinger especially. This did, in my mind. All of a sudden, I felt the connection that the music of 1977 could be as great as the music of 1965. It's not an exaggeration because everything for me changed from that point on. I wrote my first ever piece of rock journalism. It was an emeritus contribution to my high school newspaper, talking about basically how great punk rock is, and especially how great the Ramones are. I saw the Flash Cubes for the first time about not quite 2 months later. So,
where did they play, Carl? Was that at the Jabberwocky?
When I saw them the first time, it was upstairs at the Orange, which was in it's not in Marshall, in Irving, I think. I can't remember.
Wow.
Like in geography, not what I do. It was not quite as big a name in the local iconography as the Jab.
Or the Jab was awesome.
Yeah. I went to the Jab a few times.
I saw Southside Johnny and the Asbury Jukes there. Did you see that show?
I did not. I did see David Johansen there.
Okay.
And now I have a story I was about to tell, but I decided not to.
But yeah, so you're blown away by the Ramones, as I think most of us were.
It was pop music. It was pop music. That I wasn't prepared for that. But to be for this thing that was supposed to be so radical and offensive, to be so Beach Boys like.
Yeah.
What did you think of Blondie's first album at the time?
I loved it. I loved Mark Schipper's description of their image on the cover as Marilyn Monroe back by the Dave Clark 5. Here again, I didn't need to hear a note of the music to know that I love this band.
To know you're going to love it, yeah.
I heard X Offender says, yep, I do in fact love this band. There's a Blondie chapter unfinished that might go in greatest record ever made volume 2 if I do a volume 2.
Well, one time when I was at Syracuse University, I was lying in my bed. I was playing the first Blondie album, falling asleep to it. And I'm about a quarter way asleep, and You Look Good in Blue comes on. And then I hear that line, I could give you some head. And I just sprung up in bed, like, what? And then I hear, what the fuck? Then I hear the and shoulder. Oh, okay. Very clever.
It wasn't an actual offer, I know you were laying in bed, but it wasn't you listening to. You don't think the records speak just to you, do you, David?
Say it again?
You don't think the records are just speaking to you directly, do you?
Yeah, well, of course I do.
Okay, that's right. Okay, me too. I just want to be sure.
Yeah, and while we're on this subject, I want to pop up the cover of this book that we've been talking about, because it's brand new. It's called The Greatest Record Ever Made. This is volume 1, which possibly means there will be more volumes because you call it volume 1. But this is, I mean, what's the best way to describe this, Carl? This is a whole book filled with basically your personal little, how many paragraphs? 6, 7, 8 paragraphs at the most, review of fantastic records from the early 60s all the way through
2012.
2012 up to 2012. Yeah. And here's what I love about it. All the records that you list, and we're not going to get into telling everybody because we want people to buy the book and find out what's in there. But everything that you write about in there is a fantastic record. I mean, it could qualify in a lot of different people's minds as the greatest record ever made. But what you have such a great writing style that it every little thing you talk about, and I love the way you end up the little conversation about this particular record with something about the lyric or something about the title or something about the actual song that brings the whole, few paragraphs together into one thing. It's really well done, and I think every record I read about in it, I was looking forward to the final paragraph to see how you were wrapping this one up, because it got to be it's a hook. It's a great hook that you used in that book. And what I can tell people, even if you're very familiar with all these songs from the early 60s through 2012, or if you're not, what I loved doing was I went song by song just to remind me of everything, even though I can sing many of them by heart, right to Spotify, plugged in the artist, plugged in the track you're talking about, and I listened to it as I was reading your pieces on it. And it took me quite a long time to get through the entire book doing that.
It took me a while to get through the book too.
But I'll tell you what, that was one heck of a ride. And if you've never done that, or if you're not familiar with a lot of these great tracks that you're talking about in this book, that's a fun way to do it. Grab the book. Greatest Record Ever Made.
Trying to grab it from the screen, and it's not coming.
It's trying to grab it. And I'll tell you what, he's got it right there. I want to run the banner, carlcafarelli.blogspot.com. It'll lead you all kinds of things. But as you discussed earlier, this is a print-on-demand book, self-published. I got it really, I got it underway, and you sent us you were wonderful enough to send us the PDF of everything for this show. But I have to have it in my collection, It's just wonderful.
Likewise.
Really, really wonderful, well written book, and I think any music fan is just really going to enjoy it. I highly recommend it.
Well, thank you. It would be rude of me to disagree with any of that. So thank you.
No, it's just the way. I mean, you've always done very well with your writing style, and I've always been a fan of it. But as I told you, this everything you do, I kept waiting to get to the end of the 5, 6, 7, 8 paragraphs, however long it may be, just to see how you were tying this all up with the lyric. Really well done. Cheers.
Thank you so much. It took a very, very, very long time to write. And it is, as I've been telling people, and it didn't even occur to me until very late in the process, that the book is my life story disguised as a series of 145 essays about 145 songs. It's arranged deliberately so that it flows like a mixtape, that this chapter flows into this chapter. And I was more concerned about the narrative than the flow of the music, but I have listened to the playlist, and I can testify it is one kick-ass mixtape. It rules. I drove to Ohio twice with that as my soundtrack. One time for a happy trip, one time for a not happy trip, and it serves. And I can't take any credit for that. Just any music fan could do that. What I wanted to do was tell you why. That's all. My whole point in writing the book was to present the point of view that I think any music fan can have. It's a very personal story, and my concern early on was it going to be too personal and not universal enough? And then I remembered, no, that's stupid. We all listen to pop music. Our unique stories reflect other people's unique stories. There's something in there that connects all of us. You know, if Dave wrote a book, or if Mark wrote a book, or John's written books, all these things. I have a lot of talented writer friends. Our passions don't speak for themselves, but they do speak, and all we have to do is turn up the volume for them. We're happy to share them. I can only write. That's the only thing I've ever been any good at, ever in life. And I don't say that to put myself down, because I think I'm actually a pretty good writer. I think I'm just better. I'm better at that than I am at anything else. I work in retail, and I'm fine doing that. I think I've tried to be a good person, but the only place where I think I excel is as a writer. That's the only thing where I think I've done things that are a little bit beyond what some other people could do. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Well, Carl, you said that the greatest record ever made is the one that you're listening to right now.
Yeah.
What exactly does that mean?
I think for those of us for whom pop music is foreground, not background, anytime we're listening to a record, it is the entirety of our world. It's not background music. It's not a soundtrack. It is a part of our lives. So it made sense to me early on. Dane and I on This Is Rock Radio used to talk about September Girls by Big Star. That's the greatest record ever made. And then we started to think, well, actually, no, you know what? Do Anything You Want to Do by Eddie and the Hot Rods. That's the greatest record ever made. And then we realized, well, it doesn't have to be one. An infinite number of tracks can each be the greatest record ever made, as long as they take turns. And that's what they do. They're records. They take turns. And we listen to a record with intent. It's why I've always been more of a single song guy than an album guy. I love albums, whether it's Pet Sounds, Rocket to Russia, or Fool's Face, Tell America. But there's something for those of us who were raised on AM radio, and those of us who cherish mixtapes, and those of us who program radio shows, there's something to be said about single songs. And each song is important. Each song is the most important. Each song is the greatest in its own infinite turn. That was my conceit in doing this. And it wasn't really a conceit. I believed it pretty much as soon as I said it. It's exactly right. One record at a time is the greatest. Something else will be the greatest in a minute. And we're not being fickle when we change our mind and call this the greatest. We're just moving on to the next record.
Yeah. And I was going to say, obviously, it took you a long time to put this together. And after it was all put together and put to bed and released to the world, you had to have had about another 1,000 songs rolling around your head saying, oh, I
was able to skip that part because I always thought that, the volume 1 isn't just a threat of doing a volume 2. It's a specific reference to the fact that the story goes on, whether or not I ever write another book of any kind at all.
Yeah.
I picked 145 songs, and that was a deliberate number, 145 at a time. So hence 145 songs. And there's easily a number of other songs that could have been in there. I deliberately left off a couple of my own all-time favorites, maybe even top 10 songs, just because I wanted to write about some other things for the flow of it. I mean, for me to write a book like this that doesn't have "It's My Life" by the Animals, or "Everywhere That I'm Not Everywhere," that is in there. "A Million Miles Away" by the Plimsouls, or "5 O'Clock World" by the Vogues, and so many others. I have a bunch of other chapters that are written that I just shifted and sifted. I have 2 Rubinus tracks, chapters, one of which might go in a volume 2. I have a romantics chapter talking about buying. It's a chapter about What I Like About You, but talking about buying Little White Lies when I was a teenager in Brockport. It was easy. All I had to do was figure out the story I wanted to tell this time, and if I tell another story, the songs for that will find themselves.
Yeah. Well, and as I said, you tie each track back really nicely, and without talking about a whole bunch, I was just paging through here. I have it on my iPad, and you talk about the Sex Pistols' "God Save the Queen," and anybody who knows that track is familiar with the very last line of what you wrote here, and it says, "Mine, my music, the transcendence of its noise endures," and you finish up and you say, "We mean it, man." And if you know that song, you know where that comes from, and you do that with virtually everything you're writing about, and you tie it in at the end, and I love that hook.
Thank you.
So that's just part of what I love about this whole thing you wrote, was just getting to that final part of everything you wrote, agreeing with everything you wrote, and then seeing how you tie it up. It's great. If you haven't bought it yet and haven't read it, you got to get it to see what I'm talking about.
Right. What are you waiting for, you people? Come on.
Go.
Hey, Carl, are you somebody who likes making lists of favorite things, or do you believe that it's what's the word I'm looking for? For lack of a better word, do you think it's a waste of time because your spot on your favorites list is ephemeral and it'll change from day to day? Because I know a lot of people who are much more mood based, and they say, "What's the point of making the list of my favorite? Because tomorrow it could be very different." How do you feel about that?
What's the point of eating a meal? You're just gonna get hungry again.
You're not much of a list maker, is what you're saying.
No. By the contrary, I agree with you to the idea. I don't make a lot of specific lists, but I do make some, and I think it may seem a cop out, but it's not. If you like doing it, do it. I come back to one of my favorite phrases that I've been using the past several years: dig what you dig. If anyone else doesn't like it, again, there are a number of 2-word phrases you can use in reply.
One starts with F and the other Y.
What's that?
One starts with F and the other Y.
As if is actually my favorite. What are you thinking, David? Get your mind out of the gutter.
Well, ever since he started wearing the bling, he's a gutter mouth.
Total gangster.
Cool Mo Bash.
I'm the psychedelic gangster.
I'm calling the psychedelic gangster of love.
Yeah.
Maurice Bash.
So the Flash, you've said that the Flash Cubes are in your top 3 bands of all time.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because obviously they don't have the output that so many of the other bands that we love do. How is it that they're able to overcome that and make it into your top 3?
Impact, specific impact. I think it goes beyond that. I think they deserve it, but it would be difficult for someone who wasn't 18 seeing his first rock and roll club show and seeing the Flash Cubes explode into life at eye level, because there wasn't any stage. They were playing at the same level as the dancers, and there were dancers, breaking things. Mm-hmm. That's a difficult experience for others to replicate, to have that same experience. But I also insist that the music deserves it. It's not just my nostalgia for being 18 and suddenly seeing a band that I stood there in my heavy winter coat in January of 1978, staring at this band, slamming through British Invasion covers and punk covers, and doing especially the moment of revelation of all things, when they did "Heart Full of Soul," by the Yardbirds. I just said to myself, this was what it was like to see the Beatles at the Cavern.
Wow.
Nothing has ever convinced me otherwise. The music in my mind stands up to that. I played it for other people who never heard them years ago, before the Bright Lights CD came out, before there was really anything available, before they remade It's You Tonight for Jordan Oakes' first Yellow Pills compilation. I had the few singles they released. I had a live tape from the Jab in 1978, horrible quality, but just immeasurable impact. And I would put these on mixtapes, the take trees that we all used to do.
Oh yeah.
I put a Flash Fuse tape on there. I had their demo tapes at some point, then unreleased, and I put them on. And some people responded, some people didn't, some people liked it, some people didn't. But I know when they played in Los Angeles for the first time in the 90s, they played at Poptopia.
Yes, they did.
And do you know Catherine Francis, David?
I do not.
Catherine Francis was a big pop fan in the early 90s. We haven't had any contact with her for decades. She's a big Styx fan too, but she also really liked a lot of the LA pop at the time. And she saw the Flash Cubes at IPO. Sorry, not IPO. Lawyers.
They have played IPO, but not in Los Angeles.
Poptopia. And she immediately wrote, "Oh my God, Carl has been so right for so long." And that's the passion. And whoever it is, whoever it is that has that meaning for you, it matters. It matters more than anything else. That's why I elevate the Flash Cubes in my cosmology above all these other bands that I also love, over the Romantics, who are obviously great, over a lot of bands who had huge hits.
Over the Ramones?
No, let's not get crazy. But that's the thing: the Beatles, the Ramones, the Flash Cubes. That's my trinity. When I was given the honor of inducting the Flash Cubes into the Syracuse Area Music Awards Hall of Fame 10 years ago, right? in whatever 10 years ago was, 2014. That was part of my thing. I had a chance to hone a speech and deliver it live, and to me, it was as important as anything I had to do, because it meant that much to me. The Beatles, the Ramones, the Flash Cubes. It is as simple as that for me. It comes down to those three bands. Lots of others. The Monkees. I love the Monkees. The Monkees were hugely important to me. They were on TV every week.
They're my number 3.
Sorry?
They're my number 3.
Yeah.
The Monkees?
Yeah.
Oh.
Beach Boys, Beatles, Monkees.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was tough to be a Monkees fan in the 70s, and that's where I learned to be.
Oh, tell me about it.
Yeah.
I have a great
Or the Mississippi Rollers,
Carl, I have a great SU story about that.
Oh.
I'm in my dorm room, and this is 1970, near the end of 76, I think. And I'm playing the Birds, the Bees, and the Monkees. And this one cool guy comes peeks his head in the door, and he said, "That's really good. Who is it?" And I said, "The Monkees." And he goes, "It sucks." And he walked over. That's how people thought about the Monkees. I know. That's what people thought about the Monkees in the 70s, though.
Yeah.
I remember speaking with a girl in freshman year in college, talking about the same thing. She said she was more willing to concede the validity of the Bay City Rollers, who she didn't like at all. But she just rejected even the idea of the Monkees being anything, because they were this crass, manufactured, made-for-TV band. But they transcended all of that.
Absolutely.
And my next book that I was going to write I was thinking about doing a book about the Monkees, but some other projects came up first. So that's way, way on the back burner now. But,
I remember getting into a fight in 1974 when somebody said the Bay City Rollers were better than the Beatles, and I was a Beatles nut, and I mean, it came down to fisticuffs over Saturday night and everything else. Yeah, it's crazy.
And before our time was Beatles and Stones, which is ridiculous. You can like both. You can love both.
Yeah. Oh, it's just it's crazy, but because
it's pride of ownership, Carl.
Yeah, you talk about Ramones, Beatles, Flash Cubes, and David talks about Beach Boys, Beatles, Monkees. I know the Beatles are right there for me. That could be number 1. I struggle with 2 and 3. I mean, Klaatu. I'm a Klaatu nut. Everybody knows that. That's got to be top 3. I don't know who I would put number 3. Now you guys got me thinking about it. I need to come up with a third at some point.
No, you don't. You don't.
Yeah, you really, that fight across on a Saturday night. Yeah, it was all about a rock and roll love letter, but I didn't want to be a yesterday's hero. All right, let's keep
all
it
about
good.
The money, honey.
It's all about the money, honey. Thank you. But I think my point is, my top 5, outside of maybe 2, is interchangeable on any given day. Really, and that's the beauty of having access to, as you said, today's the best day. To be a pop music fan, because you've got not only everything coming out now, you've got access to everything that's ever been.
In the book, I talk about a soul singer called Verdell Smith. Had you ever heard of her?
I have.
Yeah. But she's unknown, as far as I could tell. I don't think that record, Life Goes On, is even in print anyplace, even on a compilation. I couldn't find it anyway. Yeah. My friend Dave Murray, who was the writer I mentioned, who just is his own first novel, is coming out. He got his first copies in the mail today. His sister just loved that record, and he hit me to it, and I in turn just loved that record. There's so much out there that we don't know yet. There's so much that hasn't been recorded yet. There's so much being recorded now that hasn't reached our ears yet. But there's so much out there that's been around for decades, and we the only reason we don't already love it is because we've never heard it. It didn't get play. It didn't get burn. It wasn't used in a commercial. It didn't appear on television. They weren't on the Ed Sullivan Show. But Life Goes On would have been an inescapable classic of the 60s if anyone had heard it.
I was just looking it up here. It's right after your 4 tops section. Verdell Smith, Life Goes On. I remember listening to it online as I went through this whole thing. Great job. But people talk about Spotify and all the place that everything is available electronically instead of in our day, if an artist was influenced by somebody, you had to go out and find it. You had to go out and find the physical whatever. But the beauty of it is, as I tell my daughters who are in their 20s, you've got access to hearing anything. You can hear anything, and you can play it at any time. I mean, God, if I had a time machine in 1974 and you told me you have access to everything, I'd be like, are you kidding me? At any time? Nuts.
I remember probably around 75 or so, give or take a year, somewhere in the mid-70s, Gene Roddenberry came to SU to give a talk at Hendricks Chapel. And I somehow finagled my way in there. I certainly wasn't a college student, but I was able to get in there and listen to him. And he was talking in the mid-70s, someday you're going to be able to just sit at home and sit in front of your TV, just dial up any movie ever made, and a satellite will send it to you. Boldly go where no man is going.
Very, very prescient. Yeah.
I mean, seriously. I mean, think about it. That was major futuristic crap going on there. If someone told you that, 1974, you'd have access to everything ever made. How's that work?
Every record ever recorded. Oh wait, that was Robert Klein. Never mind.
And Jordan checks in with 4 tops referred to their lovemaking position.
Well, that's how they wound up standing in the shadows of love.
They did them in 7 rooms of gloom.
Touche.
I would like to request that no one else reach out.
It's fantastic. Well, I just want to go back to the picture of the book, though. Greatest record ever made, Volume 1, Carl Cafarelli. It's available, and we put the banner down there, carlcafarelli.blogspot.com. Is that the best place for people to go to link to where they can buy this?
There's a couple of directions there. My big thing for the book, there's ways that I make more money than others, but I don't really care about specifically promoting that. My big thing that I tell people, anybody, especially in America, but elsewhere, if you have a local independent bookstore, this is available through Ingram. They can get it for you. Keep bookstores alive. Go to your local bookstore. Tell them about the book. You can get it from Amazon if you want to. You can get it from Barnes & Noble if you want to. You can get it from Walmart, which blows my mind. And you can certainly get it through Cool Cat Music. They have autographed.
There you go.
CoolCatMusic.com is a great resource.
Ray's got autograph copies.
We love Ray. We really do.
Give him the business. Ray, of course, Cool Cat released the last 3 This Is Rock and Radio compilation albums.
Yep.
We love Ray. We love Cool Cat.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, shout out to Ray.
But if you're going to just get it versus the online resources other than Ray, great. You're going to get it Amazon. I have no problem with that. Barnes & Noble, Walmart. But give a little bit of love to your local bookstore. And just like you should give love to your local record store. Try to get it through them. They can get it for you. And I think most of them would be happy to do that. It's not going to make much difference to me. I get paid the same lack of money through any means. I would like to see the book in as many hands as possible. Anybody who does anything that can be called part of the creative arts, writer, musician, poet, professional cat mooner or whatever. We want people to know the work. And I'm very interested in getting this book in front of as many eyes as possible. Otherwise, there's no point in putting it in the public. I said years ago that no creative person has the luxury of self-doubt. You have to believe in yourself while you're doing it. You can follow the pieces after it's done, but you have to commit the act of creation and then put it out in the world.
Yeah. And as I said,
you're absolutely right.
Half the fun for me was going through this book and just listening to every track and taking me back so many times to so many places and people and things and emotions tied to it. And we can relate to that at our age because we lived it. Mm-hmm. But even if you're not our age, if you're unfamiliar with what many of us consider the greatest records of all time, this is such a great resource, and gives you a little blurb about each one and why, and it might have been why based on the way you thought about it, Carl, but it's kind of transcendent of time and age and whatnot. They really are great blurbs about each record, and I just think it's such a great resource. I love the fact that it's a resource, and I could go back to it and remember these things because there is so much, and it's hard sometimes to remember all those things. But
younger. Well, I guess
you're offensive to my ethnic heritage.
You're younger than he is now. Yeah.
It's great. Well, we wish you the best of luck with this book, and with future volumes possibly coming down the road, because I certainly look forward to it. This has been it's been a great resource for me.
What's the book that you would love to write that you either haven't had a chance to or don't think you ever will?
Wow, that's a tough one. The book I'd always wanted to write is this one. For sure. Right. This is the book. This was many years in the making. So that was my dream book. I'd love to write some fiction, but I haven't been able to quite pull it off yet. I am working on a book about the Flash Cubes. I've started work on it. I'll be interviewing. I've interviewed each of the Flash Cubes. That's for release next year. There is a companion piece for that I'm dropping hints about right now, but we'll talk about that when the time comes. But I will tell you about this companion piece. Let me just say Sparkle Jets UK, Pop Co-op, the Sponge Tones, the Kennedys.
Wow.
Oh, Chris Van Snyder. I should mention Chris Van Snyder too.
Another
Syracusean. That's right. The book I most want to write, I think I would like to do some fiction. And then I want to do the Monkeys book. I'm going to do eventually. It's going to be at least 2026 before I get around to it. Book #induct the Monkeys.
Yeah, well, it's crazy that they haven't been. It's true. I try not to worry about that. I try not to worry about that offensive corporate entity known as the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But
fighting the good fight never merits an excuse.
Right? No, not at all.
Hey, Carl, if you're many years down the line, you're taking your final breaths on this planet. You've done so many great things with your writing and the radio show and whatnot, and you've got your little transistor radio next to you. You're taking your final breaths, and you can tune in any song that you'd like to hear as you're fading away. Is it Sheena is a Punk Rocker? Is that the one you want to go out on?
I actually have a one favorite song. I actually do.
Here we go. It's the Partridge Family.
Wow. Well, awesome choice. Awesome.
Baby Blue.
Number one favorite song I used to say, and WOLF, they used to introduce it as, these guys sound like the Beatles.
Right.
They're better than the Beatles.
Whoa.
One song.
So Badfinger's Baby Blue
Number one.
is your fade out song. Wonderful. Yeah.
That's actually, that song's in my top 20 also, which given how much we know, it's remarkable that, that any song is in two people's top 20 because of all we know. But yeah, I love Baby Blue so much.
And 145 songs, 1,000 songs, 2,000 songs. There's always at least one more.
Oh, yeah. All right. CarlCafarelli.blogspot.com. Everything y'all wanted to know about Carl and the new book, The Greatest Record Ever Made, Volume 1. It's available everywhere. Cool Cat Records would be a great place to buy it via Ray. And of course, you want to listen to Carl and Dana, sparksyracuse.org. That's where you got This Is Rock and Roll Radio. Fantastic radio program to keep you apprised on all kinds of things happening today in the pop music world. I'll call it pop music because it's all pop music to us. But yeah, we wish you the best, man. This has been fantastic talking to you tonight. Thanks for hanging out.
It's so great to finally meet you, Carl.
Yeah, really.
You feel like a big shot.
It's fantastic. Well done, my friend. I applaud you on this book. I mean, I know it's a Herculean effort by anybody to write any kind of book, and but this one really spoke to me. I loved it. Thank you so much for it.
Spoke to me. I need to get the voices out of my head and onto the paper.
It's all good.
And now I need to buy a copy, so that will happen.
It's great, Carl. Thank you again. Best of luck with the book, and we'll be talking to you when Volume 2 comes out. We got you right back here on Material Issues.
All right,
and we'll look forward to it.
Anytime, I'll keep watching.
Thank you, my friend. Have a great night.
Bye-bye.
Take care, Carl. Thank you.
Well, there you have it, Carl Cafarelli, The Greatest Record Ever Made. Didn't want to get into too many specifics on the book because I want people to go out and buy it, but it's just really well done. I really like the way he approached each and every song without going too far, too in depth, but without going too little. And he wraps it up great. Yeah, what's Jordan? I just want to add how much Carl's writing for Goldmine and John's meant to be. Yeah. All of us. I guess we've all written for Goldmine and Discoveries, and
I have. Yeah, I've written for both myself. Yeah.
Great days, great days, great times. And Carl's just, his writing just really flows, and really easy to read, which is a good thing.
Yeah, of course it is.
This kind of stuff. But this is Rock and Roll Radio. His blog is fantastic. Just he puts a lot of effort, a lot of work into what he does, and it's just greatly appreciated. So go out and buy this thing. Go out and buy this thing and support Carl, and make sure we get maybe another one done.
It really does take a lot of work to do it.
It really does. Yeah, it really does. But speaking of a lot of work, we got a lot of work ahead of us trying to book more people in the future here. We don't have too much. Carl, you're welcome, my friend. We don't have too much going on.
You're welcome, Carl.
Coming up, but we do have a lot of irons in the fire. I mean, we do. David and I were talking earlier. We got so many fish that are just right in the edge of that hook, and if we could just hook them, you're going to be surprised at some of the people we're going to have on future episodes of Material Issues. But for now, I think next week it's just going to be David and I.
Possibly. I would rather save one of those for when I'm here where I can show records and things like that, because next week I'm going to be in Vancouver.
Yeah.
So unless I could. That's what I said.
Yeah.
John. But yeah, so I mean, I'll probably have bought a few things I could show, but it's always nice to be able to show and play new releases. That's we've definitely become about that. So we'll see. I have a couple of people who I might be able to get for next week, so we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens, and if not, we always got Stump the Bash to go on, and we got a lot of things.
Yeah. We haven't done a regular Stump the Bash in quite a while.
Long time. It's been a long time since we've done. So maybe we'll get that underway. We'll get it underway. So stay tuned. Materialissues.com. We'll let you know what's coming up. We appreciate everybody who hangs out with us and subscribes. Share it with all your friends. Let them know. We just did episode 167. They're all archived. Materialissues.com. And hopefully we got many more to go. So
I'm sure we do.
Yeah. Fantastic. I love it. Great hanging out with you, David, all the time. And
likewise.
Great hanging out with Carl tonight. After knowing him adjacently to everything that we're all involved with, it was nice to sit and talk with him face to face. So
absolutely
fantastic. But
and thanks to everyone who listened / watched. We always appreciate you. And please tell your friends that like anything else, we're trying to spread the word through Material Issues. So tell your friends to join and to check us out.
It's all good. We'll see everybody next week, 6 p.m. Eastern. Might be a little earlier. Look for that email or the online post if David's in Vancouver.
Yeah, I have a radio appearance not long at around 7 Eastern. So
thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Tim.
Appreciate it. Yeah. So we'll see. It's either going to be 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, or it might be just a little bit earlier than that. But we'll let you know. We'll post it out there.
Absolutely.
Prize. So love to Rena. Have a great night.
Love to Jazz.
Yeah, good deal. We're going for a nice long walk. It's a beautiful day here in South Jersey. We'll see everybody next week. MaterialIssues.com. Good night.